And now to have a quick discussion on the Nigerian president's visit to China in representation of ECOWAS. We're joined by Achike Chude, who's a Global Affairs Analyst. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for having me.
All right. The president's trip has been scheduled for the 4th to the 6th of September 2024. What are your quick thoughts, of the bilateral relationship between ECOWAS and China that Mr. President hopes to speak on?
Yeah, don't forget that some other African leaders are also expected during the president's visit, going by reports. And so this is a critical period, and perhaps it's an important period for the president to go to China because so many things are happening, within ECOWAS. ECOWAS is having all manners of diplomatic nightmares as a result of ECOWAS's failed engagement with the countries of Niger, Chad, and Burkina Faso, and over the series of coups that have taken place there. So that has brought a bit of instability, in the region, and then also led to some disunity. And so ECOWAS needs to make some extra gains as a result of the losses from these three countries. I don't know what China is expected to do, whether China tabling the issue of ECOWAS before the Chinese president. I don't even know whether the ECOWAS president, the current ECOWAS president, Bola Tinubu, will do that. I think he's there essentially for Nigeria. Of course, ECOWAS will come up in the process, but China has a way of engaging individually with each ECOWAS state, each ECOWAS country. So I think the president is there essentially for Nigeria in terms of looking at so many aspects of our socio-economic development. And that's just essentially what the president's visit is going to be about at the economic level. They're also going to look at the issues of trade. They'll be looking at, and of course, he's going to meet with a lot of businessmen. So I think it's about promoting Nigeria, and they're telling the Chinese that there's a lot to be gained from this country, from Nigeria. But yeah, go on.
The president can say that there's a lot to be gained from Nigeria and, of course, from other ECOWAS countries. But, is there really a lot? It's not like China doesn't know about what the economic standing is for many of these ECOWAS nations. So
exactly, absolutely.
Does ECOWAS have a lot to offer China?
Exactly. You're absolutely right, because the Chinese are very aggressive, business people. At the level of even the individual Chinese businessman, and at the level of the Chinese government, you have seen how China has been expanding globally, and China's influence. China is asserting influence all over the world. Even in Europe itself, China is also competing. Not to talk of Latin American countries and then African countries. China is heavily involved in Africa, so there is nothing new any Nigerian president actually can tell the Chinese, because they are the ones keeping tab. Of course, you know that China's massive economy has to be oiled by energy. So China has been, getting a lot of resources from Africa, and not just Nigeria alone. So I'm not sure that it's depicting Nigeria to the Chinese is not, because the Chinese have been doing that themselves all this while. So, but the issue is really China knows what she's going to get from Nigeria, and has gained so much over the years from Nigeria. But what will Nigeria get from China? Fine. You can talk about the rail line and some of the major infrastructural projects that China has also been investing heavily on in the country. So I think there is a give and take relationship between Nigeria, and China. But I think the president wants to see whether that can be expanded. Looking at the issue of communication, the Chinese are already here. In fact, we were told that they are doing well in the communications sector. We were also told from the president's itinerary that he will be visiting Huawei. That is a global force in telecommunications, and I think one of that company that is doing well, and is supposed to meet 10 other executives, CEOs of a Chinese company. But there's one thing that I think nobody has talked about. Possibly the president might bring it up, and that is the issue of seizures of Nigerian assets. I have a sneaky feeling, that the president will bring it up, and then also put some pressure on his Chinese counterpart to see whether he can lean on some of these Chinese companies that are embarrassing Nigeria through seizures of assets. So I think that is key, because of course we know that it's really an embarrassment for a foreign company who has contractual problems with maybe another country to go abroad and begin the process of seizing through the courts and seizing the assets of that country. I think it's a very big diplomatic problem for the country, and it damages Nigeria's image.
It absolutely is. Mostly embarrassing. But of course, just to put it in perspective, the China-Africa summit happens every 3 years. The last one was in 2021. We're having one again this year. Can President Tinubu speak on behalf of other African countries? And what I'm asking is, you did mention that there's going to be other African leaders there, but he's going there in court representing ECOWAS. But can he speak representing other African countries and their economic and political interests, keeping in mind that there is still the foreign and political battles between the West and China and their dominance in Africa and many other places? And so, whatever bilateral relationships that have to be built between countries, can President Tinubu speak on behalf of ECOWAS, or is he speaking mostly, on behalf of Nigeria?
Well, the Africa has a representative. There is the president of the chairman of the African Union, and he will speak on behalf of Africa. Just like if President Bola Tinubu has to go to an international setting where he is in a position to speak for ECOWAS, if ECOWAS is there as a regional body. But as a continental body, Africa has a representative, has somebody that will speak for her. Obviously, but you cannot do away with Nigeria's influence, even in spite of the myriads of socio-economic problems that we have. Nigeria's status and stature in Africa has diminished greatly over the years. There is no doubt about that. But still, Nigeria remains a force. Nigeria's economy remains one of the biggest in Africa, even though we are suffering serious economic debilitation.
We're currently fourth.
But again, when any African leader speaks, there's a general consensus about what needs to be done. He can also, even while speaking for the country, also make a passing statement about the rest of the continent, because they are all facing more or less the same kind of challenges.
Yeah, all right. Achike Chude, we will see. It's coming up on from the 4th to the 6th of September. We'll see what the news that emerges from that summit is, and of course, see how things turn out. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to speaking with you again.